Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Somport Deep Cut. Today we'll talk about Spain, which I think of as a country of edges edges of altitude, edges of climate, edges of old and new, edges of tradition and reinvention. When you study Spain for the diploma, you start to realize that the story isn't about one region or even three. It's about how geography forces decisions and how those decisions shape some of the most recognizable styles in the world. Spain stretches across extremes: Atlantic rain, Mediterranean sun, continental heat, volcanic earth, limestone canyons, granite valleys, and slate mountainsides that look like they were built to dare the vine to grow. And yet, they do. I like beginning the journey in Rioja because Rioja is where Spain first learned to think about aging, identity, and international style. The three zones tell you everything: Alta, cooler and shaped by altitude; Alavesa, limestone rich and elegant; Oriental, warmer and more open, once called Baja. Tempranillo dominates the conversation, but Rioja is really a story about how time reshapes wine. The traditional cellars leaned on long aging in American oak, softening tannins into something warm and sweet spiced. The modernists worked with French oak, shorter extractions, and a fresher, darker fruit profile. And now Rioja is living its third life: single vineyards, village classifications, and producers drawing borders around origin rather than around months spent in barrel. Crianza, Reserva, and Gran Reserva still matter immensely, but they now sit alongside wines defined by place rather than by clocks. Rioja teaches us that a region can hold multiple truths at once. Travel west into Ribera del Duero, and altitude becomes destiny. The vineyards rise between 750 and 1000 meters, which means Tempranillo, Tinto Fino here, ripens under fierce sun but sleeps in cold nights, preserving acidity and tightening structure. These are wines of depth and density, with tannins shaped by thicker skins, old wines, and often a generous use of French oak. Ribera is one of the clearest examples of Spain's premium shift: low yields, hand harvesting, long macerations, and aging regimes that frequently use 50 to 100% new oak at the top end. It is a region built for intensity and longevity, and the diploma often uses Ribera to test your grasp of altitude, diurnal range, and style. Move slightly west, and you enter the Duero Valley Dios that form Spain's internal spine: Rueda, Toro, and Cigales, each one carrying a different expression of climate and grape. Rueda transformed itself entirely in the last decades. Once an oxidative white wine region, it is now the engine of Spain's freshest, most commercial whites. Verdejo leads crisp and aromatic, harvested cool and protected from oxygen, often with some lees work to round texture. Sauvignon Blanc thrives here for similar reasons: altitude, gravelly soils, and a dry continental climate that keeps grapes clean and flavors bright. Rueda is Spain's lesson in protective winemaking and market awareness, a region that rewrote its identity for a global palate. To the west, Toro is the opposite. Here, the climate is hotter, the soils are sandy, and the vines, often ungrafted, are old enough to feel like elders of the land. Tempranillo, known as Tinta de Toro, grows in a small, thick skinned form adapted to the heat. The wines are powerful, dark, robust, but the altitude gives them surprising structure and acidity. Many diploma questions love Toro because it shows how vine genetics adapt to site and how old bush wines survive in conditions that seem almost impossible. Cigales sits just above Valladolid and is known not only for deeply colored rosados but increasingly for structured reds. It's a small region, but its relevance shows up in comparative sets: Rosado in Navarra, Rosado in Sigales, Rosado in Tavel, testing whether you understand how climate, grape choice, and maceration technique intersect. From here, I often move north into Castilla y Leon's mountainous northwestern corner where Bierzo lies. Bierzo feels like a doorway between Atlantic and continental Spain. Mencia grows on slopes of slate and quartz, producing red wines that are lifted, herbal, red fruited, and far finer than the heat of central Spain would ever suggest. Many vines are ancient, planted on steep hillsides that maintain acidity and elegance even in warm vintages. Bierzo is one of the clearest illustrations of how old wines and altitude combine to create finesse in a region otherwise dominated by heat. Push further west, and you meet Galicia, the green corner of Spain. Rias Baixas is the headline act, a region where Albarino climbs on pergolas to escape humidity and rot, producing wines that carry citrus, stone fruit, and a saline thread from the Atlantic. Ribeiro, inland and warmer, gives a rounder, riper profile, often from Trexadura. Valdeorras, with its cool valleys and slate soils, produce some of Spain's most refined Godeo, elegant, textured, age-worthy. Monterrey, the warmest of Galicia's Dios, gives fuller wines, but still with the balancing line of acidity the region is known for. Galicia is where Spain becomes Atlantic. It's where white wine speaks softly but with persistence, and where the diploma will test whether you understand canopy management, trellising, and disease pressure in humid climates. Now drift back east and south until you reach Aragon. This is Garnacha country. Bush vines scattered across rocky, windswept landscapes in dios such as Campo de Borja, Calatayud, and Cariñena. These wines are generous, ripe, sometimes high in alcohol, but when grown at altitude or on very old wines, they gain structure and aromatic lift that surprises students. Aragon is a case study in resilience. Vines planted at low density to manage water stress, yields naturally low, and a style that depends heavily on slope, soil, and vine age. It's also a region where cooperatives play a major role, shaping style and price. Continue into Navarra, where Rosado is king. Regulations require short maceration, no direct press, and Garnacha is often the base. Styles are dry, vivid, refreshing, designed for early drinking, but technically precise. Navarra's reds and whites have evolved significantly, but Rosado remains its diploma signature because it showcases how regulations directly shape style. Move into Catalonia, and Spain becomes a tapestry of microclimates and modernity. Priorat anchors the region. Steep terraces, Licorella slate, old bush wines of Garnacha and Cariñena, producing wines of depth, concentration, and surprising acidity. The classification system, V de Villa, Viña Classificada, and Viña Gran Classificada, underscores its focus on terroir, even if the categories remain underutilized. Monsart wraps around Priorat like a crescent, with similar grapes and soils, but gentler slopes and more approachable styles. Both regions highlight how geology shapes tannin, aroma, and price. Penedès shifts the tone again, not for sparkling wines today, but for its still wines. Zarillo, when vinified still, becomes textured mineral, sometimes aged in oak, offering one of Spain's most distinctive white expressions. The region's infrastructure, innovation, and experimentation make it a quiet engine of modern Spanish winemaking. Terra Alta pushes Garnacha Blanca into fuller Mediterranean styles, while de Sagre, fragmented across high altitude pockets, gives fresher, more continental wines. Catalonia as a whole asks you to hold multiple climates in your head at once: Mediterranean breezes, inland altitude, mountain shadows, all influencing style. Now travel south and east into Valencia and its neighboring Dios. Hotel Requena is Bobal territory, deeply colored, tannic, naturally high in acidity, capable of both rusticity and surprising finesse when old wines are handled thoughtfully. Valencia, with its Mediterranean warmth, produces everything from floral Masegira based wines to full bodied reds. Alicante brings Monastrell into sharper focus, producing dark, intense wines shaped by heat, altitude, and sometimes by marine influence. These regions are diploma relevant not because they dominate export markets, but because they reveal how lesser known grapes, Bobal, Monistral, Marsigira, behave in southern Mediterranean climates and why producers lean on old wines to build concentration. Finally, you reach Spain's southeastern arc, Jumilla and Yecla, regions defined by monastrell planted on ungrafted vines that survived phylloxera thanks to sandy soils. Jumilla, hot and arid, gives plush, powerful wines. Yecla, slightly cooler at elevation, offers a brighter, more structured profile. Cooperatives dominate, but quality focused producers have carved out space by emphasizing vine age, controlled yields, and fresh winemaking. These DOs often appear in comparative questions about climate resilience, vine age, and the economics of premiumization in historically bulk driven regions. And across everything, Riojan elegance, Ribera power, Priorat minerality, Galician freshness, La Mancha scale, Levantine heat runs the thread of Spain's business paradox. One of the world's largest exporters by volume, yet still earning low average bottle prices because so much is shipped in bulk. Cooperatives are the backbone of many regions, keeping growers afloat and shaping style consistency, while premium pockets, Priorat, Ribera, Rias Baixas, Rioja single vineyards, pull Spain towards a higher value future. Spain teaches you that diversity isn't chaos. It's the shape of a country defined by altitude, sunlight, vine age, and a willingness to reinvent itself again and again. The diploma rewards you when you see the patterns: old wines surviving drought, bush wines thriving under heat, altitude refreshing grapes in impossible places, and winemaking shifting to express not just grape but origin. That is Spain, a mosaic of extremes held together by intention. You'll find the full written companion article linked to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next deep cut.